And with that, I'd like to invite Rick Thomas to come forward here because last Sunday, I'm looking out, and I know many of you were able to join us for this. Thank you to those of you who joined us. We had what we called a church potluck and vision gathering last Sunday. And in addition to sharing delicious food, it was an opportunity for our church to talk and to dream and to pray together about the vision that God has given us as our future here at St. John's. And so what we started with is we started at our tables asking questions and asking you to answer, why did you come to St. John's? And there were all sorts of different answers to that. Some people said the food, which is legitimate, kids ministry, preaching, music, all sorts of wonderful things, lots of different answers. But then we asked, why have you stayed? And of all of the answers that were given, they all had, almost all of them, had a common theme, and that is that when we come here to St. John's, we're known. That's what it was, that we're known. We feel known by God, we feel known by other people, and we're finding that we know ourselves in a greater way. And when I think about just how isolated the world is feeling right now, I'm not going to make you put your hand up, but I know that it is an epidemic, literally an epidemic of loneliness right now. You just cannot underestimate the gift that it is to be a place where we can be known. And so our leaders shared as part of that several of the ways that we've grown as a church over the last few years. And we realized that if you just come to one service or you just come to one small group, you may not realize just how many people consider St. John's home. We estimate it's around 500 people that if you ran into them at Hanson's, that they would say, this is my church home. This is where I would go on Christmas and Easter and if there's a funeral in my family or I need spiritual support, or they're actively involved. It's a lot of people. And so Wendy Zimmerman, who's one of our members here, is probably in the kitchen setting up food for you. She said, I'm a visual learner. And so what she did, if you all want to look back, I know if you're online, you're not going to see this, but there's a beautiful wall that Katie is pointing out to here. She put that all together for those of us who are visuals to try to capture just how our church has grown over the last number of years. Like one of the things, there's little leaves there that represent the 138 different children and students that have come through our St. John's Kids Ministry in the last 2 years. There are 30 people who have been baptized for the first time over the last 24 months. We have been privileged to be a part of celebrating the lives of 38 people as they have transitioned from life to life in death, whether it be through a funeral or through a memorial service. Over 40 people in our church are reached out to regularly by our family care team. They're not here physically, but they are a significant part of our church family. And so before I go on any further, can we just praise God for that? It's just a gift. But what we shared on Sunday is that and if you've been around for a while, this is not news to you, we are at a pivotal moment in our church's history where a church our size is in need of hiring a second full-time pastor. I'm not going anywhere, but a second pastor to continue in doing the things of the church that God has called us to do. And we've been working toward that in our budget for the last several years. And as you may recall, up until this point, we have kind of fallen behind our approved budget over the course of this year. And so two things I want to mention. First of all, September, as we have grown over this last year, we have been working closer and closer toward meeting that budget that we approved. And September was the first month that we did not see a deficit, but we actually saw something just a little bit over our expenses. And so we can praise God for that because that was a great gift. And remember, we're trying to raise our budget to be able to meet the needs of our growing church to create space for this associate pastor. So that's really important. But the second thing I want to share with you is that just in the last 2 weeks, we had an individual who came to us and believes in the vision of our church and what God is doing here, and made an anonymous gift of $50,000 to move us forward in the vision God has for us. And so can we praise God for that too? And so I don't even know how to follow that up except to turn it over to Rick and say that there are several ways that we want you to partner with us in this critical and exciting time as we move forward as a church. And Rick Thomas is a lifelong member of St. John's and also a current member of our church council. And so can you give him a warm welcome as he shares?
So as Pastor said, I've been a member or connected to this church even when I didn't live in the area for my entire life. And I have to say, as we sang that most Lutheran of hymns, A Mighty Fortress, that ties back to Martin Luther himself, who is the author of it, I have never seen this many people sit this far forward in this church. So thank you for that. Thank you, Pastor, for the comments you made. And please, as you leave, take time to look at the board in the back. It is a wonderful, as Pastor said, visual representation of all the really good things that are happening in St. John's on a weekly, on a daily basis. And it's beautifully created by Wendy to represent the life of our church for the past couple of years and the impact that we make on people's lives. If you had come to the congregational meeting, if you were there, you heard me give a bit of a call to action for what we need from you to continue to grow. As Pastor said, we are at a bit of an inflection point where to continue to best meet your needs and the needs of people who we anticipate joining our congregation, we need your help. And we really need it in 3 ways. If you were here for the meeting, you heard me talk about that. First, we need your prayers. We need your prayers for those of us who you have charged with leading the congregation, that we may lead thoughtfully, that we may be intentional about the work we do and make good decisions about the steps that we take as a church to better serve you and to better serve those who will be joining us in the future. We need you to pray for each other. I see so many faces in this congregation that I've known my whole life. Lots of our members have particular needs. We need you to pray for each other. And we need you to pray that God opens the right door for the right person to join us as an associate pastor. That's an important step for us to take, and we need to find the right person who feels called to be part of this community to help us grow and serve. So we need your prayers. That's the first call to action. The second call to action is we need your time and your talent. And we saw a wonderful representation of that this morning in the gentleman who shared his story and song with us. You all have gifts to bring. Some of you serve on the family care team. Some of you are at this service because after this service you're going to be going to serve in the KidsMin program. Some of you help with our event production. Some of you usher or serve communion in worship. We need you to find ways that you can contribute to this congregation through both doing and leading. We need doers, and we need leaders to step up and help lead elements of our extended ministry. And when you volunteer in these ways, you become an extension of God's ministry through St. John's. You become the hands and feet of Jesus. So giving of your time and talents is really important. The last thing that we ask is that you give. And today you received, as you came in the bulletin, a pledge card. So for St. John's members who are as old or older than I, this was a pretty routine thing that we did, was we made a commitment to the congregation and to God as to what we were going to share and give over the coming year. We've moved away from that in recent years, but we're coming back to it for a couple of reasons. One is we think it's important that you thoughtfully make a commitment to God to share your resources with this church to, again, help us grow and best serve our community. And two, it will help us pragmatically, administratively know where we stand and what we can plan for, what commitments you all are making. So we would ask you over the next few weeks to thoughtfully think about, talk about with your families, if that's appropriate, what you're willing to commit to St. John's. And we ask you to do it in two ways. If you look at this pledge card, we ask you to consider your regular giving, but then we're also asking you to consider giving something a little extra to match that anonymous $50,000 gift that came to us very recently. So we ask you to consider those ways to contribute and to help us understand what we can count on for the coming year as we plan to continue to grow and serve all of you and those who will be joining us. So with that, I simply say thank you. Thank you for the gifts that you currently give. Thank you for your time and talent that you share with this community, and thank you for your prayers.
Thank you, Rick.